You don't forget a place like that. Not after what I saw. Not after what it did to me. It was the fall of 2021, right after I lost my job with cargo line freight. I was 34, divorced, living out of my truck, and on my last few $100, I'd taken a small job delivering old mechanical parts from Bangor to a junkyard, just south of the Canadian border, deep in rural Maine. I remember thinking, easy gig, one night, maybe two, get paid, get out. But I never made it to the junkyard. It started with the GPS. Around dusk, just north of Lincoln, it began rerouting me through back roads, claiming an accident-blocked route. I'd driven this area a few times before and knew these woods weren't forgiving, but I trusted the GPS. Big mistake. 30 minutes into the detour, I realized I hadn't seen another vehicle in over an hour. The road had narrowed. Trees crowded the edges like they were watching. A fog started creeping in, thick and wet, like it had weight. That's when I saw the gas station. Old, flickering. One pump, a small convenience store with cracked windows and faded signs that looked older than me. There was no name, just a rusted-out board hanging sideways. Letters long gone. I should have kept driving. But my tank was half empty, and something in me, maybe the loneliness, maybe the hunger, told me to stop. As I pulled in, the fog grew thicker. It curled around the truck, muffling every sound. My headlights hit the storefront, and I swear for a second, I saw someone move inside. I stepped out. The air was wrong. Heavy. Silent. No crickets, no wind. Just that buzzing overhead light by the door and the pump, which clicked once like it knew I'd need it. Inside the store was even worse. The place was dimly lit, barely enough to see past the shelves. The air smelled like mold, rust, and something else, like burnt meat. Every product on the shelves was old, expired, chips from the early 2000s, soda bottles covered in dust. A radio sat behind the counter, silent. Then I saw him. The clerk, pale, thin, too thin. His eyes never blinked, just stared through me like I was already dead.
"You're not supposed to be here,"
he said in a voice so calm it chilled me more than if he'd screamed. I tried to laugh it off, told him I just needed gas, maybe some water. He shook his head slowly.
"People don't leave here once the fog touches them."
I remember the hairs on my neck rising. I tried brushing past him to grab a bottle of water, but he grabbed my arm with a strength that didn't match his thin frame.
"You need to leave. Now. Don't fill up. Just turn around. Don't look at the woods."
I yanked my arm free and stumbled outside. The fog had thickened like concrete. Visibility was maybe 5 feet. I ran to my truck, heart pounding. But something stopped me cold. There was a woman standing next to the pump. She hadn't been there before. Long black hair, soaked with dew or blood. I couldn't tell. She wore a white dress stained with something dark. And her eyes, they were all white. No iris. No pupil. She raised her hand, pointing at me, and smiled. I gunned the engine and reversed hard, skidding on the gravel as I sped off. Headlights barely cutting through the fog. I didn't care where I was going. I just needed distance. 5 minutes later, I passed another gas station. The same one, same pump, same flickering light, same woman standing by the pump. I kept driving. 30 minutes later, I saw it again. Same station, same woman. And this time, she waved. I was losing it. There was no other explanation. 30 minutes. 3 times I passed that station. Same woman, same expression. Same goddamn way. I turned off the GPS and tried to retrace my route. Nothing made sense. Roads I had just driven were gone. I passed a downed tree I knew I'd driven by an hour earlier. But this time, it was fresh. Sap bled from its stump like it had just fallen. I pulled over and checked my phone. No signal. 2:42 a.m. Battery, 64%. I took a deep breath. Trying to reason it out, fog plays tricks. Sleep deprivation, stress. But the gas gauge was dropping. I hadn't filled up. And somehow I'd been driving in circles. I turned around and made a wild left into a dirt road I hadn't noticed before. It cut deep into the woods, narrow and winding, branches scraping the sides of the truck. But something inside me said, anywhere but that gas station. 10 minutes in, I saw lights. Not headlights, lamps. A small cabin-like building nestled in the trees, with a faded sign hanging askew. Pines View Maintenance Depot, EST 1967. I parked, engine running, and stepped out. Inside, I found a dusty radio room with maps on the walls, old photos, and a logbook that hadn't been updated in over 10 years. It smelled like damp wood and something metallic. Then I saw the wall. Pinned to it were dozens of missing persons flyers. Truckers, hikers, families, all vanished within a 50-mile radius. Some had red XS slashed across them. Others had notes scribbled in shaky handwriting. Returned wrong. Eyes white, watched from fog. Gas station again. Screaming won't stop. Suddenly, the radio behind me crackled to life. Don't turn around. I froze. My heart slammed into my ribs. The voice came again, low and gravelly.
She's standing right behind you.
I turned anyway. There she was, in the doorway. White dress, soaked. Pale skin almost glowing. And her smile was wider now. Too wide. She opened her mouth, and what came out wasn't sound. It was static, like a radio station dial spinning rapidly through white noise and screams. I ran. I drove blind through the woods, bouncing over rocks, scraping trees. My mirrors fogged up. My windshield iced over despite the fall air. And then silence. When I finally skidded to a stop, I was back on pavement. And ahead of me, again, was that gas station. Only this time, the pump was on fire, and the clerk was standing in the flames. He didn't burn. The clerk just stood there in the fire, staring at me. His skin didn't even blister. I threw the truck in reverse, but it stalled. Smoke started curling from the vents. The air smelled like rot and ozone. And then, the woman was in the passenger seat. Smiling, I screamed, grabbed the door, and tumbled out onto the gravel. My truck roared to life on its own and peeled off into the woods, without me. I was alone. No vehicle, no phone signal, surrounded by fog and pine trees. Then I heard the crunching. Footsteps. Coming closer. From the smoke and ash walked someone new, an old man with pale skin, long gray hair, and milky eyes. He looked like death itself. He didn't speak at first, just reached into his coat and pulled out a tiny leather notebook, handing it to me. Inside were dozens of sketches, gas stations, each one with someone standing next to the pump. Some of the figures had no faces. Others had impossibly long arms or hollow eyes. One sketch showed me. Same clothes, same scar on my chin. I was in the sketch, next to the woman. I dropped the book. He finally spoke. She watches travelers. feeds on the ones who don't leave fast enough. Who is she? I asked. His face turned dark. The last one left from before this town existed. The fog comes for her. It lets her move. I asked how to escape. He looked up into the fog and whispered, "You don't. You only wake up. Somewhere worse." He melted into the mist before I could say another word. I ran. I followed the tree line. I walked for hours. At some point, I passed my own footprints. I was in a loop. The fog wasn't just weather, it was a cage. I don't remember how I got back to the road, or how I found the next vehicle, but I woke up in the back of a state trooper's cruiser. He told me they found me stumbling barefoot on Route 6, bleeding from the arms and mumbling about her smile. I was taken to a hospital, held for psych evaluation. They thought I was on something. I wasn't. I told the nurse everything. She nodded but said nothing. Before discharge, she left me a small note on my bed tray. It said, "We've all seen her. Don't stop when you see the station again." I left Maine the next day, never went back. But every now and then, on long drives, when fog creeps in at dusk, I still see that station in the rear view. Same pump, same woman, and every time, she's a little closer to my window. I should have quit the second I stepped behind the counter. The station at exit 79 wasn't on Google Maps. It stood alone in the desert, flickering under a sickly yellow canopy light, surrounded by nothing but dead silence and scorched dirt. Easy money, the guy at the temp agency had said. Just log pump numbers, clean up, and stay awake. They didn't mention the hollow-eyed man sitting at pump 3 when I arrived. He wasn't moving, just sitting in the driver's seat of a rusted-out Oldsmobile, staring dead ahead. The engine was off. The lights weren't on. No movement. I waited 10 minutes. He didn't get out. When I finally went out to ask if he needed help, he turned to me slowly, like a puppet on rotten strings. Then, with a smile that looked Sonon, he said,
"She only comes for the lonely,"
and drove off without pumping gas. I chalked it up to desert crazies and went inside. The place smelled like sulfur and bleach, flickering fluorescence, a wall of outdated snacks and expired drinks, and a back room with an old rotary phone mounted to the wall. No dial tone, just clicking. Around midnight, I heard it, tapping on the windows. Not knocking, tapping, like someone tracing their fingers in a circle over and over. I grabbed the flashlight and checked the lot. Nobody. Then, when I turned back, every pump nozzle was out of its holder, dangling, dripping a black liquid that definitely wasn't gasoline. I ran to shut off the system. Behind me, the radio, one I didn't turn on, crackled to life and whispered,
"Pump 3 is still watching."
The second night, I almost didn't return, but I needed the money. I told myself it was desert madness. Stress. Maybe I dreamed it. But when I came back, there was a handprint on the inside of the station window. Long fingers, clawed nails, pressed from the inside. The print faded as I walked up to it, like steam evaporating. There was something else. Behind the station, where the light didn't reach, I found a door in the ground, like a storm cellar, padlocked, chain rusted and ancient. But on the door, someone had scratched words into the steel. "She waits below, screams if you open, kills if you listen." That night, a car pulled in around 2:30 a.m. A red Dodge Charger. No license plates. The driver was a woman with no face. Literally, just skin stretched. Smooth were her eyes, nose, and mouth should have been. She sat still for 8 minutes, then screamed. Not from her mouth, but through the radio. A scream so high-pitched it shattered the station's glass door. I collapsed, bleeding from my ears. When I came to, she was gone. But on the counter was a torn piece of receipt paper, with 4 words written in dried blood. One night left, Lucas. I never told her my name. I wanted out. I even packed my bags and tried to leave town that afternoon. But my car wouldn't start. Battery fine. Tank full. Engine intact. It just wouldn't move. So I called for a ride. Tow truck guy laughed when I said, "Exit 79. Ain't no gas station out there, buddy." He hung up. I walked back to the station before sunset, because somehow that was safer than the open desert. At 3:03 a.m., the pumps turned on by themselves. I watched through the window as a figure, tall, gaunt, with a shadow that didn't match its movement, filled the black car with thick, writhing sludge. It didn't pay. It didn't look at me. It just whispered, "She drinks from beneath. We only serve her." The ground vibrated. I rushed outside. The cellar door behind the building was open. The lock was shattered, and from it poured the sound of hundreds of people whispering in reverse. I grabbed a crowbar and descended. The stairs were wet, covered in moss, lit by a red, pulsing glow from below. As I reached the bottom, I found rows of black fuel drums. Each one was labeled Lonely, 1987. Desperate, 1999. Lucas, 2024. Mine was already half empty. I turned and saw her. Long black hair floating around her like seaweed. Eyes pure white, no pupils. Mouth unhinged. Body pale and cracked like desert earth. She skittered forward in pulses like a video buffering. She reached for my face and whispered, "It's almost dawn, but not for you." I woke up in my apartment. I thought it was a dream until I turned on the faucet and black sludge poured out. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. A chorus of whispers said, "Pump 3 is still watching." I left town that hour. But here's the part that made me lose it. I went to a diner in Vegas, shaking, just wanting to be around people. The waitress came over, smiled wide, and said, "She only comes for the lonely." Same voice as the man from night 1. Same stitched-on smile. I ran, and on the highway sign outside of town, Exit 79 had been freshly painted, even though on every map, it doesn't exist. I pulled into Marrow Creek Gas and Supply just before dusk, middle of nowhere, Texas. The only station for 50 miles. Cracked signs. Wind chimes made of animal bones hanging on the porch. A smiling old man in overalls waved at me from the bench. I asked for gas and the bathroom key. He said, "We don't do unleaded here, son. Only premium." Odd, but I nodded. Bathroom key came attached to a cow skull on a rope. Inside, the bathroom was immaculate. Like a hospital. Too clean. No mirror. No sound. When I flushed, the lights flickered red. And something whispered behind me, "You'll do nicely." No one was there. Back at the counter, I paid cash. The clerk asked if I was alone. Said yes. His smile grew wider. I got to my car and saw it. Underneath, something was dripping. Thick, green-black ooze. I popped the hood. Instead of an engine, There was a hole, a deep, fleshy one, pulsing like a throat. Something inside it breathed. I went back inside. The clerk was gone. The place was empty, but the floor had changed. Where tile had been, now there were symbols carved into wood, rotating slowly when I wasn't looking. I heard footsteps above me, even though there was no second floor. And then a door creaked open by itself. A trapdoor behind the snack aisle. I should have run. Instead, I climbed down. Below, I found a vast tunnel system. Industrial pipes, screaming behind walls, and giant tanks labeled with dates and names like blood banks. I followed the sound of a drill and saw them. For people wearing skin-tight red uniforms, drilling into a living, twitching wall, extracting black liquid into canisters labeled premium. They looked up at me, not angry, not surprised, just hungry. One of them held up a clipboard and said, "New donor just arrived. Owen Grady. Blood type O negative. Marked for full extraction." I ran. They didn't chase, because something else did. A mass of limbs, bones, and hoses slithered from the ceiling and screamed with 1,000 mouths. Fuel the thirst. Back upstairs, I found a back room marked employees only. Inside were dozens of wallets, phones, and ID cards. Names scratched off. A photo on the wall showed the clerk, the gas station, and a younger version of him in 1943. He hadn't aged. Beside the photo, a receipt. It read, "One premium host, $82.99. 2 gallons Hope, $29.99. One Memory of Love, $199. They were selling people, draining them, bottling their emotions, blood, essence, whatever fed that thing below. When I tried to flee, the doors locked. But I remembered the bone chimes. I grabbed one. I smashed the gas pumps, and the ground beneath the station screamed. I lit the station on fire, watched the roof collapse as the creature below wailed. Smoke turned red. Ash fell like snow. I hitched a ride from a passing trucker at dawn. When we stopped for gas hours later, I looked behind us. The station was gone. No fire, no ashes, just flat land. I asked the driver if he knew Marrow Creek Station. He said, "They closed that place in '72. Whole family burned in an accident." I asked him what kind of fuel he used. He smiled and said, "Only premium." I took the job because I was desperate. After flunking out of college, racking up credit card debt, and basically ruining every relationship I had, I needed something. Anything. My uncle in Kansas owned a roadside gas station. Barely functional. Mostly run by old-timers and truckers who stopped for cheap smokes and burnt coffee. He offered me the night shift. Said no one wanted it. I didn't ask why. I got there on a Tuesday. The place was ancient. All buzzing fluorescent lights, dusty shelves, and that sour mix of gasoline and moldy coffee filters. There was a bell above the door that jingled even when no one walked in. I figured it was wind or a raccoon. There were 3 pumps, but pump 9, a crooked, rust-stained one at the far end of the lot, was the oddball. It stood alone, half sunken into the asphalt, as if the earth had tried to swallow it. The keypad was dead, the nozzle duct taped. I was told not to touch it. Pump 9's offline. Ignore it, said Darren. The shift was boring. Except for the weird guy who came every night at 3:03 a.m. exact to the second. Always paid in cash. Always got a single bottle of water. Never spoke. He'd just point at the bottle, leave exact change, and vanish back into the fog. But that night, the first night, I made a mistake. It was around 3:30 a.m. No customers, just static from the radio, flickering lights, and the sound of wind outside. I decided to smoke behind the station. That's when I heard the nozzle click. I froze. It was pump 9. The light above it, which had been off for years according to Darren, was glowing, dim, yellowish, unnatural. The keypad blinked. $66.60. I swear it wasn't plugged in. I went to investigate. Each step toward pump 9 felt heavier, like gravity thickened. The air smelled like copper and old meat. My skin itched like ants were crawling beneath it. Then the nozzle moved by itself. It curled upward slowly, snake-like, pointing at me like it was aiming. And the screen now read, "Welcome back." I ran. The next day, I told Darren. He went pale. "You saw it," he whispered. "You saw her." "Who?" He didn't answer, just handed me a rusted key and said, "Don't ever open the trapdoor near pump 9. That's where she comes through." What the hell did that mean? That night, I was shaking before my shift even began. But curiosity's a bitch. By 2 a.m., I was pacing. By 2:30, I was staring at the window, waiting for the weird water guy. He never came. 3:03 passed. Silence. I stepped outside. Pump 9 was dark again, but something was humming. I heard it, like a low growl beneath the asphalt. I walked slowly toward it. That's when I noticed the tiny, round metal trapdoor tucked behind the pump, almost invisible unless you were right on it. The padlock was rusted. The number 999 carved faintly into the handle. Despite every instinct screaming at me, I used the key Darren gave me. It opened with a loud clang. Inside, stairs, leading down, dirt walls, like a tunnel, smelled like a grave. I took a flashlight. I don't know why I went down. Maybe I thought I'd find wires, old plumbing, logic, sanity. What I found were teeth, dozens of them, embedded in the walls. Human teeth, some still bleeding. There were carvings too, symbols I didn't recognize, and handprints, small ones, hundreds. I turned to run, but something moved behind me. Not fast, not loud, just present. A shape in the dark. Eyes, pale, reflective like a cat's. And a voice, not out loud, but in my head. "You've opened it. Now she can breathe." After that, everything changed. The next shift, the lights flickered nonstop. My reflection in the fridge glass wasn't copying my movements. The bell over the door rang 12 times, even though no one came in. Darren didn't show up for the morning shift. Neither did anyone else. I tried calling my uncle. No answer. My phone showed no signal, even though I had full bars. That night, I heard footsteps in the ceiling. I didn't know there was an attic. I checked the back office. A hidden hatch above the filing cabinet led into the crawl space. I climbed up. It wasn't just an attic. It was a watching room. Photos pinned to the wall. All of me. Sleeping. Smoking. Standing at pump 9. Even photos from behind me when I was alone. One had something circled, a shadowy shape crawling up from pump 9. There were bones in the corner, and a voice behind me whispered, "She's hungry." I turned, nothing. But when I climbed down, I saw the trapdoor outside was wide open. Dirt smeared across the tile floor leading into the station. Whatever came out was already inside. I tried to leave. My car wouldn't start. The engine was full of sand. Not dirt. Sand, like from a desert. My keys vanished from my pocket. My phone had melted. The security footage showed me standing at the counter, sleeping with my eyes open. Time looped. Every hour, the same music played on the radio, a broken lullaby. And at exactly 3:33 a.m., the voice on the intercom said, "Feeding time. I haven't slept in 4 days. The station won't let me. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in the tunnel. Back where the teeth grow on the walls and the dirt breathes like lungs." I tried setting the place on fire. The flames just stopped at the doors, like the station swallowed them. Pump 9 now moves. It rotates slowly, following me like a predator's eye. And now I know what's beneath it. I went back down the tunnel one last time, flashlight flickering, heart pounding like a drum in a meat locker. I reached a chamber made of bone and rusted metal. At the center was her. She wasn't human, or maybe she once was. Her body was made of hundreds of faces, screaming, weeping, frozen mid-howl. Her fingers were nozzles. Her hair was hoses. Her mouth was a black hole leaking gasoline and voices. She saw me, smiled. "I've been pumping through you for years." She touched my chest, and suddenly I remembered every nightmare I ever had, because they weren't dreams. They were warnings. I ran, barely made it out. Now I work the night shift as usual. I smile at customers. I sweep the floor, but I'm not sure if I ever truly left that tunnel. Every now and then, I smell gasoline that isn't there, and I swear I hear her whisper through pump 9. "Fill her up."